Daf Pei Gimel Amud Beis will begin Daf Pei Gimel Amud Aleph right at the bottom. Ton Rabbanan, Reishius Arisei Sechet. The Torah gives the mitzvah of challah, that we have to separate a portion of the dough to give challah, and the lashon is Reishius Arisei Sechet. It says your dough, the first of your dough. Kidei Arisei Sechet, meaning that what you have to take challah, the chiv of taking challah, is if it's the quantity of dough which is your dough, the dough that you were given, the dough that you had. And how large is your dough? How do we define your dough? The dough that you had in the midbar. We had the mon, and from the mon we typically would make into bread, and make dough out of it. The shear, the size of the quantity of that they were given, the daily portion of the man, that's the quantity of dough that has a chiyuv of challah, that you have to be mafresh challah from. V'kami yisas midbar, how large was yisas midbar? Tersiv ha'omer asiras ha'efahu. The omer was a tenth of an ephah. So it was a tenth of an ephah, and from that you have the chiyuv of giving challah. How much is an ephah? An ephah is 3 saw. So a saw is 6 kavin. And a 6 kavin, and a kav is 4 roiva. And a roiva is 6 bayim. So that's how we discussed previously that there are 144 bayim in a kav, because there's 100 in a saw rather. Because a saw is 6 kav, a kav is 4 roiva, that's 24, and 24 times 6, there are 6 bayim in a roiva, that's 144. Therefore, there's 144 bayim in a saw. Now, the ephah, the omer is a series of ephah. An ephah is 3 saw. So if it's 3 saw, that means is that there's 72 roiva, and there's 432 bayim. Now, omer is an asirius ha'ephah. It's a tenth of the ephah. So therefore, it's a tenth of those shiur. Therefore, it has in it the asirius ha'ephah as 43.2, 43 to 5th bayim, or 7.2 or 7 to 5th roiva. Mikanam, where we see from here that zayin revoim kemach void chayim b'challah, that 7 revoim void and a 5th, 7.2 revoim, that's where the chiyuv of challah. If you have that quantity of dough, that's where you have to be mafresh challah from that quantity of dough. Shehem vav shel Yerushalmis, like we learned previously, that at different stages they increased the size of the measurements. So this was 7.2 was in the midvarius. They added a 5th, they increased the size of the measurement by a 6th. When they came to Yerushalayim, and the Yerushalmius, therefore, the size is a 6th larger. So a 6th of 7.2 is 1.2. Therefore, that leaves 6. So that's a 6 roiva of Yerushalmius. And again, when they came to Tzipori, they also increased it by a 6th. So therefore, when you have a 6th of 6, you're left with 5, and it was 5 shehein hey shel tzipori. Mikan amru, we learn out from here that this is what was allocated in the midbar. The asirius ha'ephah was allocated in the midbar. That is the proper size of a suda. That is the size of a suda that is helpful for a person, it's nourishing for a person. So if he has that much for a suda, he is bori, healthy, mavorach, and he is gebenched. Yes, Shalkein Rafsan, if he eats more than that, he's a Rafsan. And Pachs Mikanu Kul Kibimayim, but less than that, he is Mekalkel, his digestive system. That's the proper amount of the suda, appropriate suda that a person should have. Zok the Mishnah, Anshe Chalzer, Anshim Repesah. If you have residents of a chalzer and residents of a merpeses, which we'll illustrate in a moment, they forgot to make an eruv. So they forgot to make an eruv. Now, the way the Torah explains the case is they made an eruv amongst themselves, but not between each other. So, for instance, you have the chotzer, and there's a merpeses. There's a balcony or a lower level. So you have people who live in the bottom area. Their houses open directly into the chotzer or directly into the chotzer. Now the people who live up here, they either open directly to this merpeses, and so there's a ladder that comes from the chotzer up to the merpeses. The people who live here, they live up here. They go down the ladder to the chotzer and out, so they have access to the chotzer. They have a right of way of the chotzer. They can use the chotzer. The people below go directly out. As we'll see later on in the Gemara, alternatively, this Pesach over here is not on this level. It's higher up. The Pesach is here, and they will only be able to access the merpeses, so they live higher up, and they access from a ladder that comes down to the merpeses. So we'll see these two alternative scenarios. Now the issue over here is there is for instance, a mound in the chotzer. There's a mound in the chotzer. Who has use of this mound? Who has the use of it? Now, again, we're talking that they made their own Eruv, and the people down here, they made their own Eruv as well. They also made their own Eruv. As the Torah explains, if they didn't make their own Eruv, it would be a regular Asura, and since they have a right of way, it's a Serish Lebim Kaiman. But if they made their own Eruv, it's a regular Muteris. So they won't Aser on each other. Now the question is, if they both own, as the way Torah explains it, if they both own something, let's say a mound that's or a pedestal that's in the chotzer, who's deemed to have the use of it for Shabbos? It belongs to which area? Now they both have a right of way to the chotzer, but they can't carry from one to the other. The item over here in the chotzer, who has the use of it? Whose item is it? Can they place things on? Is it deemed to be part of the upper level or the lower level? Now, as we'll see, the basic principle involved here is where it's tashmisha benachas, the one that has easy use of it. The chachamim, they allocated the use of the item to the area that has tashmisha benachas, that the use of it is that one can be used easily. And if it's not tashmish benachas, it's not allocated to them. So back in the Mishnah, they did not make an error between each other. So who has use of certain items? Something which is 10 tvachim high from the ground, it's 10 tvachim above the ground level. So there, the use is allocated to the merpeses, to the upper level. They can carry from their rishus to this mount, to this item over there, but not people in the chotzer cannot carry from the chotzer from their rishus to this mount. But if it's lower than 10 high, it's deemed to be the use of the lower level, and they have the right to use it. So they can carry between the mount and the lower level. So what is the basic principle? The principle is where it's tashmish benachas, the one that has the easier use of it, that use is allocated to him for Shabbos. So similarly, if you have a pit and it has a bank around it, so it has a bank around that's high, or vasala rock, if they're 10 tefachim high above the floor of the chotzer, then it belongs to the upper level. Less than that, it's allocated to the chotzer. But that's only if the mound is close to the merpeses, is close to it. But however, if it's further away, even if it's 10 tvachim high, it's allocated to the chaser because it may have the height, but if it laterally is far away, it's still difficult to use it. So therefore, it's allocated to the chaser. The Eza is smucha, what's considered close, kol shein rechoika arba tvachim, if it's not more than 4 tvachim away. So now the Gemara will go through different scenarios as to where we allocate what to which area. So pshita lezeb pesach pesach hainu chalayin shebein beis chatzeres. If there's equal use, each have equal access to it, equal ease of use. So it's zeb pesach lezeb pesach. In both cases, it's within 10 tvachim. Pesach is defined as there's not a height difference of more than 10 tvachim. So it's something where it's a mound that is within 10 of the lower level and it's within 10 of the upper level. So they both have the same ease of access. That is like a case of a chaloin shebein beis chatzeres. If you have 2 chatzeres and there's a wall between them with a window, the use of the window, it's equally accessible by both. So since we can't allocate it to any one of them, it's also to both. Here also, it'll be also to both. It's not deemed to be the use of any one in particular, and so therefore we would say, since they did not make an error between them, it's also to carry from one to the other. Lezeb zrika, if they are equally difficult, that they're both more than 10 tvachim away from each other, but they also have equal ease or difficulty of use of access. So here also, it makes no difference because we can't allocate it to one or the other, so they're both of them are difficult. That's like the top of a wall between 2 chatzeres. If you have a chatzer, a split, there's a wall that splits 2 chatzeres, the top of the wall is not allocated to any one of them, to either one of them, and therefore the use is also to both. That if in both areas they can lower it. But again, it's equal access. So both is through lowering it. So hainu charitz shebein beis chatzeres. That's like a charitz, a ditch that's between 2 chatzeres. There's a ditch between them. They both have the use by lowering it down into the ditch. And if it's equal access to both, then it's also to both of them. To one, it's within 10 tvachim, so it's considered a pesach. But to the other one, to the residence of the other one, it's bezrika. It's more than 10 tvachim. So you have a mound that there's one area that has a higher elevation, so therefore the mound is within 10 tvachim of it, and therefore it's considered a pesach. But for the other one that they have a lower elevation, the mound is more than 10 tvachim, so that's the bezrika. So Hainu, the Rabba Bar Rav Huna, Amar Rav Nachman, that's the case that they had, where you had 2 chatzeres, one with a higher elevation, one with a lower. And then it's allocated to the one where it's within 10 tvachim, the one that has the ease of access. For one, it's within 10 tvachim. And for the other one, they have to lower it down. They have to lower the item down to get to the usage. They have more than 10 tvachim above the mound, and in order to use it, they have to lower something down to get it. So then, I know the Rav Shizmi Amar Rav Nachman, that's the same case, that it belongs to the chaser, which has the ease of access. Now let's say it's difficult for both. So now, normally we said that if they're equal, whether it's ease of access or difficulty of access, but if they're both equal, we can't allocate it to one over the other, then they're both also. But let's say in both cases it's more than 10 tvachim. But there is, for one, it's an act of throwing, and one, it's an act of lowering. Do we say that the act of lowering or throwing in itself, one is easier than the other? Therefore, notwithstanding that they both have a distance of more than 10 tvachim, but perhaps we should allocate it to one over the other, because one, the action is throwing, and one, the action is lowering it down. So what is the din over here? Amar Rav Shnei Masur. Rav says we consider it to be equal access, and we can't allocate it to one over the other, and they're both asur. Shmuel Amar nice Shmuel says that we give it to the one which is bishilshel, because that's inherently easier. It's easier to lower it down than it is to throw it up, because the rule is shelazet tashmish benachzul zet tashmish bekasha. Because for the one that's lowering, it's easier. The use is easier. It's inherently easier, and therefore we allocate it to them. Anything where for one the use is easier and the other one is more difficult, we allocate it to the one that it's tashmisha ben nachas, that has ease of use.